Today, I'll give you the lowdown on the backstory and evolution of Wang Yangming's 15th century school of heart in Chinese intellectual history. While Westerners may seek purpose through faith in God, what guides Chinese people? It's all about finding peace and purpose by oneself within oneself or one's heart, not seeking an external higher power. The school of heart isn't just some abstract theory. We're not studying it for the sake of expanding knowledge or gaining insights into the world or our times. Our focus is on cracking the code of finding peace and purpose in our lives as contemporary Chinese individuals. The late Eastern Zhou Dynasty, 8th to 3rd century BCE, was a time of utter chaos, and the people of China endured immense suffering. The Zhou royal family had lost its authority, and countless vassal states engaged in brutal warfare, resulting in rivers of blood. Faced with such agony, our nation had two possible outcomes: complete disintegration or the emergence of brilliant philosophical thinkers. Thankfully, we were fortunate enough to have a group of philosophers during the pre-Qin period, 3rd century BCE, who engaged in intellectual debates and established their own schools of thought. This period, known as the era of the 100 schools of thought, saved us from the brink of collapse. Emperor Wu, a powerful ruler, and Dong Zhongshu, 1st century BCE, an influential philosopher, teamed up to suppress other schools of thought and elevate Confucianism to the top spot. This move solidified the Chinese orthodoxy, which is the cultural and intellectual tradition deeply rooted in Confucian teachings. As a result, a new era in Chinese academic thought emerged, known as Han Confucianism. It shaped the intellectual landscape and had a lasting impact on Chinese culture and society. Towards the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, 3rd century, chaos took over, and people stopped caring about traditional rules and morals. It was like society fell apart all over again. Chinese intellectuals were in a tough spot, but they eventually found a new path to follow: Taoism. Out of the 6 schools of thought, Taoism made a comeback and became the focus during the Wei and Jin dynasties, 3rd to 6th century, known as Wei-Jin Xuanxue. Xuanxue was all about studying Taoism and became a big deal among intellectuals at that time. But despite their philosophical efforts, it couldn't stop the decline of Chinese culture. The entire nation lacked a spiritual home, and only a few educated folks managed to find some sort of spiritual liberation, living unconventional and carefree lives. The 7 sages of the bamboo grove were a prime example of this attitude. They embodied a carefree and unconventional lifestyle. Unfortunately, even this attitude couldn't stop the decline of Chinese culture. Picture this: Chinese culture was fading away, and then Buddhism showed up during the Han Dynasty, 3rd century BCE to 3rd century CE, offering us a lifeline. But here's the twist: when we tried to translate those Buddhist teachings, we hit a roadblock. The Indian teachings and terms just didn't fit smoothly into Chinese, revealing a gap in our own thinking. But hey, Chinese intellectuals didn't give up. They put in years of hard work, translating, understanding, and absorbing Buddhist teachings. And finally, during the Tang Dynasty, 7th to 10th century, we pulled off something incredible: we translated most of the Buddhist scriptures into Chinese. It was a game changer. It meant that Buddhist thought became a part of Chinese intellectual discussions, filling a void in Chinese thinking. This achievement laid the groundwork for the rise of Neo-Confucianism in the Song, 10th century, and Ming dynasties, 14th century. Okay, so China still had a bunch of issues to deal with, but guess what? We got a glimmer of hope when the Zen school came into the picture, inspired by Buddha's teachings. Now, what's the deal with Zen? It's all about working on your mind. There's this famous saying that many of us can probably recite: the teaching of Zen, no need for fancy words. It's all about pointing directly at your heart, finding your true self, and reaching enlightenment. Basically, the Zen school is all about delving into the mind, and it's a crucial part of Buddhism. So, you had these Chinese folks who found inspiration in Buddhism, and they set out to do something big. What was it? They wanted to break free from the old Confucian rules and create something new. This new thing they came up with was called Neo-Confucianism. It still had its roots in Confucianism, but with a fresh twist. Now, what was the big idea behind this new way of thinking? It was all about encouraging each and every Chinese person to be their own person. Wang Yangming summed it up pretty well when he said, "No matter if you're a regular Joe or a business tycoon, strive to be a true hero with a clear mind and the ability to make your own choices." You see, during the Song and Ming dynasties, there was this cool mix of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism called Neo-Confucianism. It was all about finding a balance, with Confucianism as the foundation. But why didn't Wang Yangming's mind studies catch on? Well, blame it on the Qing Dynasty, 17th century. When those Manchus took over, they brought in military-style rule and messed things up. One major thing they did was ditch the civil governance and bring in military rule. They got rid of prime ministers and set up military bureaus instead. And guess what? It threw off the whole intellectual scene in China. The path that Chinese intellectuals were following got interrupted. Sure, there was the position of the prime minister, and that person represented the path that intellectuals followed. But then, that path was blocked. When the Qing Dynasty fell, 1911, it was like a replay of what happened in previous dynasties. Warlords popped up, trying to take control of the whole country. First, we had Yuan Shikai, and then a bunch of warlords from the Northern Ocean took turns. There were warlords everywhere, big and small, making life even harder for Chinese intellectuals. Even though we've now got fancy systems, us Chinese still stick to old-school ways using those fancy systems. This intro helps us see where Wang Yangming studies fit into the grand scheme of Chinese intellectual history and cultural destiny. The heart of the matter is all about building our own unique personalities and being aware of our moral compass. It's a mind game, and it's all about our inner selves. It is said, it's easier to take down a mountain bandit than to conquer the bandit lurking within our own hearts. For the Chinese mind, it may be hard for religion alone to shape our mindset. Amid the rich culture and traditions, we need to figure out if we, as individuals, have a place where we can find peace and purpose in this age of individualism, instead of just chasing material desires. That's the biggest question we Chinese folks face today. When we contemplate the meaning, value, and goals of life, we must seek inspiration from philosophy. Currently, we lack this aspect of education and must make up for it. Those born in the 1980s are now catching up, and I deeply appreciate this. I believe in you because I believe in myself. If every Chinese person does not believe in themselves, how can they trust others? Thus, we must acknowledge a fact. As the breakdown of a family-oriented society occurred, we entered an individualistic society. However, this individualism lacks a spiritual foundation and ultimately devolves into materialistic pursuits of the self. Each person seeks to fulfill their own desires, relying on help from acquaintances, a society based on personal connections. This is the current state of China. The impoverished suffer in misery, while the wealthy find no fulfillment in their prosperity, leading to a sense of unease from all sides. Without establishing a strong belief system, one's life lacks purpose. Only when there is a clear utilitarian goal that is transformed into a life objective can one be considered virtuous. If we measure ourselves against the standards of Confucius, I believe that the majority of people, including myself, Wang Defeng, may be labeled as unvirtuous. It means that our hearts have not found peace. First, We gotta rise above the daily grind and find inner peace. We need to disconnect from worldly stuff to settle our hearts. Once we've done that, we can dive back into the real world and live our lives. It's like having a spiritual mindset while dealing with worldly matters. For thousands of years, Chinese philosophy has been centered around this one big question: how can we organize our lives, which is no easy feat. The solution is all about blending the spiritual and the practical. We gotta find harmony between transcending the everyday and being fully present in it. Here's the deal. The first step is transcending the everyday and finding our inner peace, and then we bring that peace back into the real world and put it into action. But practicing doesn't mean blindly following a higher power or dedicating ourselves solely to worldly pursuits. Our own conscience is our universe, and the whole universe is within our conscience. The truth is already there, deep within us, but we haven't noticed it because it's been covered up. According to Buddhism, it's all those deluded thoughts that hide it from us. These deluded thoughts can be grouped into three main types: desire, anger, and ignorance. They cloud our hearts, so we gotta get rid of them. That process of getting rid of them is what we call practice. In Zen Buddhism, they're all about this idea of practicing, which is all about clearing away the clouds. Truth isn't something we need to search for externally because it's already a part of us, we just haven't realized it yet. Chinese philosophy is a philosophy of life that focuses on improving our emotional well-being, not just cramming our heads with facts and figures. We gotta get that straight. Listen up, folks. It's not our brains that go through storms. They're just filled with knowledge and ideas. It's our inner selves, our souls, that can get rocked by storms. So don't buy into the stories of those fancy business elites who claim their success is all thanks to their brilliant ideas. Don't fall for that trap. They never spill the beans on the real reason behind their success. It's because they've faced inner challenges, and that's what truly matters. Are you with me on this?